No.
All right, great evening, everybody. Glad to see everybody here. My name is Omar Mohammed. I'm a resource at Morgan State University. As you can see, we are the Entrepreneurial Development and Assistance Center. We work with individuals who are looking to get started in business. It's mostly working with women entrepreneurs. We've had a women initiative since 2004. We also work with those individuals that are formerly incarcerated, opposed to students and staff with faculty on campus, and we also do some government contracting as well. So we're glad to be a part of the Growth Beyond Me series. We started these back in last year with the National Association, the National Association right here, the National Association of Mom Entrepreneurs, but I'm glad to be a part of this. So Tamara and Jasmine are the co-founders of the National Association of Mom Entrepreneurs, where they work with mom entrepreneurs. Tamara and Keisha happen to own the space that we're in now. The law, well, she's here, I don't want to steal her thunder. So I want to turn it over to my twin, because people think, my daughter think that we're twins, because the way that we act. So I'm turning it over to Dr. Tamara Lucas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Cube Cohort and our Growth Beyond Me series that Omar and I have been doing for over a year now. And so just for those that are new to this space, again, I'm the co-founder of the National Association of Mom Entrepreneurs, and we started about 10 years ago servicing West Baltimore moms who were looking to start, sustain, and grow businesses. We saw a need at that time, so if you think about entrepreneurship 10 years ago, it was nothing like it is today. There's no resources, especially for women, and more specifically for mom entrepreneurs. But most of the households in cities like Baltimore, communities like Baltimore City, are ran by single mothers who are living below the poverty level. And while we understand that, servicing our children is important, the thing is, the children have to go back home to their mothers. And so the root of the problem is always increasing the household income so that our children don't have to do things like become squeegee kids and resort to other solutions. So if we can build the mom up, we can ultimately build a family and ultimately build generational wealth in communities like Baltimore City. And so this is our way of addressing that issue, and it's the solution to the problem. And so we have programming free, thanks to Truist and PepsiCo and EDAC, that offer mom entrepreneurs free entrepreneurship training and resources. Our cohorts actually start on Monday, so if you missed this cohort, sorry, but we will have another cohort in September. And it's an 8-session program, depending on what program you're actually part of. We have a Makers Academy with OpenWorks, so that's specifically for moms who are making an actual product in OpenWorks and able to produce it there. And then we have our Traditional Institute for any mom entrepreneur. So we can always give you more information about that. And you guys are currently in the largest Black women-owned co-working space in the United States. This is owned by myself and my sister Takesha. She runs this place, so don't ask me no questions. But we launched the Cube Cohort in 2016. We actually launched in Baltimore County. And then during the pandemic, when businesses were closing down, we were expanding our space. So I'm very thankful for all of the individuals, and especially my sister, who helped us to make this a thing for our generation, our generational wealth. And so we're working on our second location, and you guys will actually have an opportunity very soon, hopefully, no, it will, to invest in the real estate, because we're purchasing this building as well. Yeah. So, all right. That's so event, and this club, we're focused on women in tech. And so the other hat that I wear, I know you guys are like, what is it that you don't do? Sleep. But it's okay, because my whole purpose in life is really to provide people the resources and opportunities they need in order to succeed in life, period. That's how I'm fulfilled. So the work that I do on a consistent basis doesn't feel like work, because I'm living my life passion. And so I had the opportunity to lead a program called the Urban Business Innovation Initiative here in Baltimore City through TechCo, which is Maryland Technology Development Corporation. You know, we don't have that on the sign, and I just realized, I'm like, where's the actual name? Because everyone gets so mixed up. So Karen, Jack, note to self, we need to make sure we mention that. But TechCo is one of the driving forces here in Maryland that drives investment through with technology and science. Well,
What the sign says,
what the science is, no. But specifically, I focus on providing the support services that tech companies in underserved communities here in Baltimore City need in order to succeed. So I like to say, I provide everything but money, okay? Now, Karen and Jack, I'm gonna have come up. They have the money that you need. But I'm gonna have, if you wanted to say some words, Jack and Karen, to come up, introduce yourself on TechCo, and talk about some of the other resources. So if you are a tech company here in Baltimore City, or you're looking to build a tech company here in Baltimore City, please reach out so that I can help provide you with those services that you need and get you in the pipeline to receive funding from TechCo, and also some of our partners who you'll hear from today. One of our partners you'll hear from today. So,
hi everybody, my name is Karen Zucardi. I work with Tamira at the Maryland Technology Development Corporation. I work with rural communities, but I'm briefly going to explain to you what TechCo does. So we lead innovation to market. We support entrepreneurs in the state all the way from a napkin idea to Series A. So if you guys have ideas but you don't know how to get started, you have questions about mentoring opportunities, funding opportunities, you have a great resource here at the Cube with Tamira, but also I'm happy to give you my information if you want to connect with us. Another thing that we do is to provide support to the ecosystems in the state. When we don't have thriving ecosystems, it's really hard for TechCo to get entrepreneurs from those ecosystems. So we support our partners with presentations, workshops, trainings, whatever our partners need. TechCo is there because at the end of the day, if we have thriving communities, those communities will give us what we need. At the end of the day, it's technology-driven entrepreneurs. And when we talk about innovation and technology, sometimes we get confused. Sometimes we think, oh my gosh, I have to be a researcher, I have to be an engineer to ever apply to funding opportunities at TechCo. But as our CEO likes to say, small businesses can do technology and can be innovative. So my analogy or my example is, let's say you are at a beauty salon and you come up with a very creative tool that can help other beauty salons in their journey to bring more customers, to become more effective and more efficient. Well, that tool that you created, that could have IP, you can patent that tool, and that can be commercialized. So we want to make sure that when we talk about technology, like you feel like it's something that is approachable to you, something that you can do on your everyday, activities. If you guys have any questions, we're going to be around. There are some goodies from TechCo. Please take some bags, mints, cups, pens. We are here at the end of the day as a semi-state agency to support entrepreneurs in the state. And again, in Baltimore, you have the great resources here at Tamira. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I'm glad you said that, because it definitely leads to the reason why we're here. When a lot of people don't know this, and I think I shared this the last time, but I was actually a computer science major when I first started college, and I loved everything technology, and we're talking about 20 years ago, right? That took a lot of years. 20 years ago, when technology was nowhere near what it is today. And the reason that I didn't move forward with my computer science degree is because I was one of the only women in my class, and I just felt like no one was nurturing like me as a woman, and I didn't feel like I belonged. And coming from West Baltimore, literally where Coppin State University is, that wasn't something that was really glorified and put in our face. And so bringing a space like here is not just about building a tech company, but how can you support a tech company as well? We have people in here that are looking to transition into tech-based jobs, and you have resources and people that are looking for that talent as well and creating that pipeline. But also knowing that you can introduce your children or younger people to tech-based fields, tech-based jobs, or they can create tech businesses. And when we hear the word technology, especially in the Black community, we get a little scared, especially if we're in an industry like the beauty industry, which is a huge billion-dollar industry that a lot of young people are going into and learning that space, but not realizing if you develop a tool, if you develop, everyone knows Under Armour is actually a tech business, right? Like that's a technology started with creating a shirt that was absorbing the sweat in a way where he didn't feel so sweaty at the end of the day. That's technology in that. And people don't really understand that, and they don't understand that we are able to build these things and create these things, and we have people in an ecosystem here in Baltimore that can help you do that. So thank you for laying that up. You was like Kobe and I was Shaq.
All right, so I guess I'm LeBron.
We don't even like LeBron. LeBron's a crybaby.
I don't want to get on the basketball stuff. All right. So to run the show today, we'll have our speakers come up and talk about the role of women in technology. And then we're going to have a pitch competition. So you only have 5 people here, right?
Right.
So 5 people. So 4 people. So if you're interested in pitching your idea, you can sign this sheet. I'm going to send it over here. There you go. So if you pitch your idea, you'll get a chance to win some micro money, some small money. But you'll also have access to the resources that we have at Morgan State University, as well as with the CUBE and the National Association of Mom Entrepreneurs. And I'm going to take the liberty of saying the resources at Tenco, if you will. So please complete that if you're interested in being a part of that. So that's going to take place after the women come up here and talk about entrepreneurship and technology. All right, that's all I have. You ready? All right, I'm going to disappear, y'all. So I'm working on another project, but
Don't go too far. You have a competition to lead.
Well, no, we're going to train somebody else to do that competition. So enjoy, ladies, and the 4 gentlemen.
Let's give Omar a round of applause. He loves to
Sweat, I'm just going what we do.
Got you. So I feel like I haven't moderated one of these panels in a long time. I have a team of people that do these type of things now. But I am always honored, to talk to amazing women, and amazing women that are not only just doing things within their respective life and professions, but also looking to really impact the world with the work that they're doing. So I'm happy to bring up Stephanie Chen and Angel St. Jean. And so Stephanie, I don't know Stephanie's official title, I'm gonna let her do that. But Stephanie represents a company called Fearless. Has anybody ever heard of Fearless before?
Yes.
No, Fearless. So we love Fearless. She's gonna talk to you a little bit more about that. And Angel is the CEO in a company that I got to personally, well, I get to personally work with through TechCo, is the Black Brain, is it the Equity Black Brain Trust. Or is it the Equity Brain Trust?
The Equity Brain Trust.
Because you're not black.
Our name was the Black Brain Trust.
Okay.
And
See, I'm not
crazy
at all. Thank you. And she's going to tell you a little bit more. So I want to start off by you ladies really giving an introduction of yourselves, and then I have some questions that I'm going to ask, and then hopefully the audience has some questions that they are going to ask you guys too. So Stephanie, we'll start with you.
Sounds good. Stephanie Chin, she, her pronouns. I'm the HUD program manager at Fearless. So Fearless, we're a full stack digital services company located in Baltimore City. If you're familiar with Spark, which is another wonderful co-working space right off of the Inner Harbor, that's where we're headquartered. Fearless, full stack digital services, so a lot of software engineering. Primarily we do government contracting projects, but we also have a commercial portfolio as well. So for example, we do some work with the NFL around some DEI work. We've done museums.
First of all, back up. She said a little work with the
A little work with the NFL.
It's not little at all, guys. So big work with the NFL.
Big
Go
work.
ahead. Go ahead.
Big work with the NFL. But our whole mission is to build software with a soul. So for us, that means how can we use technology and software to power things that matter to people, matter to our community. So that's what we do at Fearless. We're about 270 employees now. We have an office in addition to our Baltimore headquarters. We have folks out on the West Coast for NFL work. And then we also have an office down in Montgomery, Alabama for work that we do with the Air Force. I joined Fearless back in 2019 to run our digital services incubator program for entrepreneurs, which is called Touch. And that consists of a 2-year incubator program where we teach tech entrepreneurs everything that they need to know, specifically how to scale up within government contracting. So business development, marketing, branding and communications, finances, all of that we cover over the course of 2 years with our company. So we really value going deep with them.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Angel.
So good evening, everybody. My company is the Equity Brain Trust, and we developed a software platform that we would like to be the workday for the DEI professional. So our platform collects, analyzes, and measures diversity, equity, inclusion data in companies and points them in a direction of where they need to focus in order to have measurable impact. It's designed to be the tool of the trade for DEI consultants or internal diversity officers, HR folks who are leading DEI in companies. So that's my day job. I'm a mom. I have 4 kids, 3 small ones, not so small anymore. I consider myself a citizen, and I really like, when you're talking about, you have an idea and you can, go after it and bring it to life. A year ago even, we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary. We are hopefully a week or so away from closing our seed round, where we will have raised $1 million, for our company. We've gone through beta testing, and we'll be doing an official launch. We already have customers on our platform, and delivering reports that really can, change the world. And I made a comment about citizen because I'm that person that I vote, I pick up trash, I, get involved if I see something, happen in the neighborhood that we need to be a part of. And I spent my career working mostly in nonprofit and government as an applied researcher, helping organizations use data to get results. And when the organization I was working for was going through race, equity, and inclusion training, and I, shared, my experience as a Black employee and as a person who saw the experience of our 100% Black people in our programs. it was not received well. The company tried to fire me. And as my lawyer was negotiating my separation for the company, the CEO got an award for his courageous race equity and inclusion work. And that showed me that one, there's no standard for what it means for a company to be equitable, and two, that companies can be doing all the things, right? We had the DEI consultant, we had the workshops, we had the committees, we were doing all the things, and my situation was allowed to happen. And so many other people that I've interacted with, and so I had the idea to create a way using my background in data to really standardize what it means to quantify diversity and inclusion, and then create technology that can have impact at scale. So if many companies using this, it's possible that we can actually scale equity in our country, in the globe. And so I saw that as a duty, to do, and it was insane for me to say that I'm a CEO of a tech startup, because I think I'm tech adjacent. I've never coded anything in my life, and I'm running a tech company, so.
I can't tell that you've never coded before. So if you ever have a conversation with Angel, she's brilliant, right? And I think that the work that you're doing and the reason why you're actually doing it is so important, because we as Black women are always unheard, and it's so common for those type of things to happen and us not to have a voice. And so I commend you on the work that you're doing, and to be able to be a mom of 4. I'm a mother of 1. Feel like that, right? Y'all saw her. Listen, I dyed my hair last week, okay? Just say that. So kudos to you and what you're doing. I hope you don't take it lightly, because it's not easy. We're going to talk about some of it. We're going to get into that. I got my cue cards like I'm Oprah. I think I'm good at this. I'm probably should have my own cover. Next time y'all come, I'm going to have my logo on the back of these cards. I can't wait. So, but also to you, Stephanie, I know Stephanie's journey or career, her journey and her career a little bit for a while. We've been knowing each other for a while. And doing your work intentionally of uplifting other companies to basically do the same work that you guys are already doing is a commendable thing as well. Because we know in our community, when we get something, what do we typically do? Try to keep it to ourselves. And, I commend Fearless. I talk about Fearless all the time in the work that you guys are doing over there. So. But I had some questions, and so we're going to start off with this one. So as of 2022, women make up only 28% of the industry workforce in tech, the tech industry workforce. So what are some of the things that you two are working on to increase that statistic, intentionally? So you talked a little bit about it, Stephanie, but can you kind of give us a little bit more details? I know that there's some people in here that are looking to get in the tech workforce, right?
Yeah. How many folks are already in tech versus how many folks are thinking about entering tech? Maybe you're interested in it. Okay, got it. Yeah, it's so interesting, because I think sometimes organizations think oh, if we put it out there, people will just come, they will just find us. And then you realize that they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the support, they don't have the resources to be able to grow these people within the organizations, right? So that's one thing that Fearless is constantly working on. So yes, there is exposure and things that we do out in the community so that folks can see a pathway into technology, can see themselves represented amongst our employees at Fearless and our leadership team and all of that. We feel like that awareness and exposure is really important. But then what happens once you get inside the organization? That's where it really matters, right? That's where it's going to make a difference of, do I stay here? Do I go somewhere else? Am I being supported? How do I feel on a daily basis? What is the culture like? And so those are all things that we measure through different surveys and things like that we do, but also through even just the intentional approach of thinking your onboarding isn't just the first week that you get on the job, right? It's not okay, attend a bunch of workshops, watch some videos, and then you're off to the races, good luck, hopefully you've learned everything that you need to know about your job and how to perform. For us, we take a 90-day approach. So 90 days of onboarding, of meeting people within your organization, meeting people across departments that you're going to be working with. What type of training can we do? What type of support can we offer to our employees so that they can grow within the organization ultimately? One unique thing about us is that we have passion coaches. So there is a dedicated individual that is committed to helping you grow as a person, as an employee, as a professional. So how do we blend what you're personally passionate about with the work and the opportunities that we have within our organization? So those are some of the things that we're doing, especially to foster a more diverse and equitable workforce. And then like for us at Hutch, we also know that being intentional about the resources that we invest into our companies is really important. So we're specifically focused in underrepresented communities, so women, people of color, veterans. So those are the groups that we look to support through our incubation program. And even just hearing other women say, you know, it's so rewarding to be able to hear and to meet other females in tech, other female CEOs, hear their journey, feel like you have a community that you can lean on. Our companies are really close and connected with one another, so it's important for us to foster that type of culture, that type of community, that type of safe space where they are learning, so it doesn't feel like what I learned, you know, I hold very close and near and dear to me. It's all about how do we lift up one another, how do we empower one another. So that's the culture that we're very intentional about building.
I love the passion coaches. You're not
You know, Fearless is actually a part of my origin story because initially, like I said, my work has been a nonprofit. That's what I knew, and I think we typically go to what we know. And so I decided to create a nonprofit organization that does what I'm doing. And I went to Fearless to ask Delali, I asked somebody to introduce us, and I was like, can your company build this platform that I want to build? And he was like, no, you need to build it. Every company in the world needs what you're building, and you can have impact and build generational wealth at the same time. And if you apply to this accelerator, I had never even heard of an accelerator. If you apply to this accelerator, we'll help you, we'll support you. And they did. They helped me with my application. We got into the accelerator. They gave me a $10,000 grant to hire the UI UX designer who created like our platform, or the design of our platform. And then Fearless was the first beta tester on our platform. Paid beta tester on our platform, you know, so they've just consistently put their money, their time, their energy where their mouth is as it relates to like investing in business. And Delali is still one of the advisors. Like, I don't have an official board yet, but he's, you know, one of my advisors. So I just wanted to just really big up Fearless because that work, I mean, Stephanie and I have talked, and I mean, she's made herself available to me as well in terms of supporting. So
I just want to say that wasn't intentional, guys, when I chose the panelists at all. It really wasn't. It was knowing that you're doing amazing work and you have a company and a story to share. I think that everyone needs to hear that. And I don't even think I realized, like, I do remember, but I didn't really think about, like, the connection there. So I'm not just saying it because I like Delali. I'm saying it because the work is really intentional, what they're doing. And I think that you guys need to just make sure you're connected to, you know, to that network and that ecosystem. But if you want to share, like, some of the things that you're doing to increase the statistic.
Yeah, I mean, so first, like, just showing up in it every day, because it's an interesting thing to have a company that's trying to dismantle really inequitable treatments across the system, and to experience those things, like, you know, in real life, applying, you know, for investments, et cetera. So I think, you know, it's a thing, and there is this, you know, community, I would say, of entrepreneurs, and I definitely have a network of Black women in tech that I meet with and talk to, and so it's this sort of idea of like paying forward, where like Ashley from Climb, you know, she is a person who's like, okay, you need a company, you got to stretch those dollars, you know, that you got from those first investments, you need to stretch them. So, you know, companies in India are a fraction of the cost, you know, here. So she helped me, you know, get the company that I work with to like build a platform. And then people come to me every day, so now they see me and they're like, okay, I know you before, you weren't doing anything technology, and here you are. How did you do it? I have an idea, and so I make myself available to sit down with other people who have ideas and just talk about my journey, talk about the steps that I took and the lessons that I learned along the way. So far, we're a team of 5, plus my co-founder and then our contract team, and we just hired our first male. So like actually hiring women, bringing in interns that are women to give them exposure to both like the tech side. So we look to bring in somebody who's interested in going into tech to work with our dev team and build their experience, and then somebody that's interested on the business side to understand, because you can be in tech and not be a coder. So understanding the business side of things. So yeah, we pay it forward. And then today I was picking my daughters up from aftercare before I came here, and then one of the women I was signing out said, "Your daughter was telling me that you're a CEO of a tech company." So yeah, it's a big deal to my kids to see that mom is doing this, and so we have those conversations about like entrepreneurship. They come to my job, they work for the Equity Brain Trust. They make flyers, for us, and whenever I have a chance, I bring them out, to meetings, because I want them to see that like this is possible for you.
I love that, because Ryan will be mopping the floor, wiping the wall, but I think it's important to have our kids involved in what we do, even if we're not pushing. Like, I don't push her to do certain things, because if we see those examples, they're more likely to go out and bet on themselves as well, right? And knowing their capabilities and what they're able to do, and not allow society to tell them what they're not capable of doing. So there's always this big talk around access to capital. And especially for women, you know how, I think the statistic for women, the percent that women are getting in VC funds increased like 1%. So I think we're at like 2% right now.
Double.
Yeah, 2%. 98% of that still goes to men, right? But yeah, we are starting businesses faster than men. But I also know from a business perspective that there's this access to capital versus customer acquisition, right? So what are your thoughts about access to capital versus customer acquisition? So I'll let Angel start with that.
It's funny because when we were sitting here, I was just talking to Stephanie about how, we're at the stage of like really trying to get ourselves, engine going. And I'll come back to that. As it relates to access to capital, I think that what I have learned in these last 2 years is that there is this concept of like pattern matching in terms of like what kinds of companies we invest in. So when you think like tech, you're thinking about what exists already. So when I started to share about my platform, it's like, is this HR tech? Is this ESG? Is this like, what is this? They want to try to figure out like what box it's in so they can understand like what market is it a part of? How big is that market? How are you differentiated in it? And like, what's the possibility that you're going to 10x our return, if we invest in you. And when you're creating a new category, like I would say we aren't alone in trying to create this category, but we're like really solidly in the space of DEI tech, and there hasn't been a lot of that. So you're trying to convince people that is a thing that by itself, could be invested in. It was very frustrating to me because I was reading articles about, people getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to build technology that I was already like trying to build, and I couldn't get that money. And I think there's a big conversation that's going on right now about Baltimore in specific and in this region, and as compared to like the West Coast where, you know, there's bigger checks, you know, being written, et cetera. So like risk tolerance of investors here, and then pattern matching in the sense of like, you know, people who've worked in tech companies before, people who went to schools like, you know, Stanford or whatever, where they're training people to go into this. If you don't match any of that, then your profile, you know, doesn't, you know, look like what we typically fund. And the majority of people that are making investments are also white men. And so if you don't, if the market isn't already developed, you know, or mature, and then the type of issue that I'm working on is not something that you know about yourself, then I have an even harder time to convince you about, you know, the potential for success for investing in my company. So that's been a big challenge, and we have been fortunate. I'll say, you know, TEDCO is here. We've gotten several checks from TEDCO. We've gotten, well, we're waiting on our fourth check of $100,000, so we $400,000 total. And it's, you know, kind of, you know, understanding like what you qualify for, and like that those resources are there to help businesses like, you know, ours succeed. But it is a big challenge, and Harbor Bank, I have to, you know, big up Harbor Bank because they're the first investors in us, and they gave us extremely good terms that then other investors follow, that really put us in a position, you know, to be successful and not have to give away all of our company to raise the money to get to where we're going. So there's a lot like that's you know, involved in that, and you know, companies are. I'm excited to begin to this place of $1 million, but there's a lot of companies that don't get, you know, to this stage, and without that capital, like I don't have the runway to build my platform. It takes a certain amount of time to build a platform, to test it, and you need a certain amount of runway to get there. And you know, that's what the investment capital is supposed to do. If it's not there, you never get there. I mean, we have built a portion of what we really want to build because we haven't had access to the money to really get the team in place to do what we need to do. So it's definitely been a challenge. And we've had people say, focus on sales, you know, because if you sell your platform, then you don't have to give away your company and equity, you know, to build it, but I can't sell what I haven't built yet. And so now that we've been able to be fortunate and be extremely resourceful with the resources that we have. I mean, UBII program, you know, getting access to like consultants to work with us that we didn't have, like the money didn't come to us, but it went to the consultant to help us, you know, with our communication strategy, et cetera, executive coaching. We've taken all the resources to like help us stretch our dollars, you know, this far. And now we're at a place where we have the runway to, you know, get to sales, and we're starting to like get that going in earnest. And I'm excited. Our vision for this year is that by the end of the year we can make a decision on whether or not like we want to grow faster by getting more investments and like, you know, scale faster, or if we want to just continue to grow through, you know, sales, which, you know, is ideal, but it just doesn't allow you to go as fast as you want to.
But let me say this before Stephanie goes. One thing to note about Angel and being able to obtain the investment is that she also took the feedback and actually went back to do the work, right? And so a lot of times people are seeking investment, but they haven't done any of the work in order to be a company that can actually get investment, right? And sometimes for me, especially, you know, dealing with minorities and women of color, I gotta be the bearer of bad news and say, hey, you're not ready for investment yet, but these are the things that you need to do in order to get ready, right? And so when you're listening to those things and you're getting that feedback, it's important for you to take that feedback and implement it, and then come back and say, okay, well, I've done this, what's next, right? And I can say, working with Angel, she's been consistent with actually doing those type of things. And it's not sometimes people don't like the conversation. I don't like to hear it. I own a company. I don't like to hear it either. But it's the reality of it, because because if you put yourself in your own shoes, like if you're giving somebody money, you're gonna want your money back, right? At the very least, you're gonna want to break even. And so sometimes you have to think like that. Now, is it unfortunate that white men can go up and be like, yeah, I need $100,000, and the chances are they actually get it? I've sat in some of those rooms. Yes, and so that's why it's also important for us to look at how we are allocating our resources collectively, right? My big vision is to have this big fund specifically for women of color and investing in women of color, but it's going to take a collective of people to invest in that fund to be able to do so. We really want to see that impact. And so, we got to think about those things from a generational wealth standpoint as well. So Stephanie, I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think what excites me about this landscape is that there are so many resources, right? There are different types of funding and capital that you can leverage depending on the type of business, depending on the industry, depending on your business stage and how early you are, and versus, do you have customers and are you revenue generating and you're looking to scale? So, I would say also, the education piece is also thinking about, not everything has to be venture capital, right? Not all ideas are going to be venture backable. If you're more of a small business, a lifestyle business, you want to do this for yourself, you want to do this to create generational wealth for your communities, depending on the idea that you're pursuing, venture might not be the right path for you. So I would also take that into consideration so you're not headed down chasing the wrong dollars. And, there is that education piece around, if you are going for more venture capital or angel type of money, finding the people that understand your industry, understand your market, so you don't have to do as much teaching to them of this is what we do, but this is what the entire market even looks like. So I think of CDFIs, I think of resources like Baltimore Community Lending, small business loans at small business friendly interest rates, especially at BCL. I'm a board member, so full disclosure there. But at BCL, we don't require collateral, which is really different from if you were to go to your traditional bank and ask for a business loan, and it's kind of oh wait, I have to have money and assets in order to get money from you. If I had this stuff, I wouldn't be here, right? So think about things like that. Think about the grants that are out there, especially when you're first getting started and you're trying to go from idea to a minimum viable product or some type of prototype that you can potentially shop around to customers and get user feedback and do all those things. Grants are phenomenal because think of it as free money, right? So you're not going to have an investor who's on your back about trying to 10x their returns, or you're not going to have to create a board of advisors that now you have to report to and do all that managerial work and stuff. So think about all the other types of capital that exist out there besides venture capital or angel investments.
And that education is important because if I give you $400,000 and you spend it on the wrong thing, are you ultimately going to win? It's also knowing where to invest the money at in your business to get the best return, right? Not everything is going to come, you invest in this is going to be equivalent to $1, but, investing in your technology, we know that you're going to be able to use that then to, acquire your customers. So making sure that you're educating yourself on how to use the investment dollars is extremely important also. So I'm gonna ask one more question, then I'll let the audience ask. And so this actually came from one of my students that's in the room, and they asked, what's the biggest challenge that you faced that you did not expect in your respective fields? Angel, what she got? She tried to choose one.
Challenge should I talk about?
There's so many. What would be the biggest for me?
I can share.
Is it Jesus?
I have been leading different, initiatives throughout my career. I've been, in leadership positions. I've had teams. I've managed, budgets. I think being a CEO has been a unique, kind of challenge for me. There's this article that goes with this graphic that kind of shows like this chart where there's like this high number and then it kind of like goes low and it comes back up again. It's called like the emotional journey of like a CEO or something to that effect. And I would say like I have definitely been, on that ride of like high highs, you get that investment and like you're super excited, and lows were like either you didn't get it or you blew it, a conversation with a prospective customer and you just feel terrible. I've had days where we're waiting for an investment to come and it's not coming, but I have payroll, to me and people who have like quit their job to take a risk on me, like at my startup, and we've definitely gone into our savings to like cover payroll, a couple of times. And my husband, who was like #1 fan, like biggest supporter, most trusted advisor, first investor, he would say all the time. It's just like I really don't want to dip into like our savings anymore to like cover payroll. So what do you want to do? So it's like pressure, from over there, and then so many people that like want to see us, win and succeed. And I think it's just been a tremendous amount of stress. I think that I've gotten better over time in terms of riding the wave, so I'm like not like super high, anymore, like super low, just kind of like, taking on the chin, like this is how it goes, learn from it, and celebrate the wins because, it's a big deal to, I wanted to say, I just learned about this company that just finished raising like $20 million, and I was like, my little $1 million, but it's like at the beginning of this, I had no idea like how to raise money, and we're about to like close $1 million, and so like celebrating. So I think, all that like comes with, being like inspiring, encouraging to my team, and holding them down. To like, having to let somebody go because they were not a good employee, and that's a really hard thing to do. But being a CEO is different than just being in a leadership position. For all of those various reasons, I wouldn't change it for anything. If I had to do it all over again, like I would do it like 10 times. And I think that, one of my advisors, John Lewis at Harvard Bank, he reminds me to keep like running my race. And so I think knowing that like there are people that we can learn from and, advice that, people have to give, but like there's a certain way that I show up in the world that, this work was meant for me, and trusting myself, trusting God, and continue to like run my race, keep blocking and tackling, as John would say, put one foot in front of the other. And so I guess I wanted to share that experience because I think that no matter what it is that we're working on in this room, like there's going to be those like, moments of like, highs and lows. But, you just have to keep putting that foot in front of the other, like, every day, and riding the wave. And I think eventually, you get to where you're meant to be. I think, what happens with the Equity Brain Trust, we'll see. But there's a lot in this journey that I've been on that, it's made me feel, proud and just, excited that I had, this experience, with all of, what it came with.
Did you think of one, Stephanie?
Yeah, I'll start at the macro level. So for me, I think the biggest challenge has been in times where you're really at this crossroads with your values, and you're kind of like, all right, do I put up, do I shut up, do I stay where I am, make a decision to leave and take like the harder, uncharted waters type of path. So the whole way I came to Fearless and met Delali was because I didn't feel like where I was at the time, I was making the impact that I actually wanted to have and serving the people that I actually wanted to serve. You know, there were pieces of my work that I loved doing, but I couldn't stand the culture, I couldn't stand the environment anymore. I didn't feel like the conditions were there for me to be able to thrive and do the work that I wanted to do and do the work that I felt like people needed to have done. And so it was at that point, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, right? So, you know, you feel that internal guilt where you're like, well, I'm lucky to even have a job and to be able to work remotely. And here you see like even colleagues getting laid off or furloughed and things like that. So you feel that internal guilt struggle. And then at the same time, like for me, I was having people tell me, well, you don't have an MBA, so how much do you really know? You know, or, you know, having like DEI challenges and discriminatory things happen where you see all your white colleagues getting promoted and you call that out and they're just kind of like, you know, and so it's kind of, you know, so I was at that crossroads where I'm like, well, do I stay and just be part of the problem, or do I like put up and go somewhere else? And so ultimately I decided to go somewhere else, right, where I felt like my values were more closely aligned in order to be able to do the work that I wanted to do. And I didn't have to go around convincing people and justifying what I'm doing or why I'm doing it or how I'm doing it and the people that I serve and all that. So I think overall that's been the biggest challenge. And in Hutch, sometimes it surprises people because out of the 2-year program that we run with our entrepreneurs, the first probably quarter of the first year is centered around values and your why. Why are you doing what you're doing personally? Why does your business exist? How do those things overlap? Because people oftentimes don't recognize how important values are as the foundation of your business and how that's going to be how you end up pressure testing the decisions that you make, the culture that you build, all of that. And so we spend a lot of time with our companies around that, and sometimes it really comes as a surprise because you're like, well, I thought I was coming here to learn how to like manage my cash flow or, you know, how to sell to people. And like, we're talking about values and like stuff that can sometimes feel like fluffy to people, but like we see that as being the foundation of what you're building.
Wow, I think that was a good way to like end my questions. But no, honestly, because you know, people always ask, that's the one question that I always get, like, why do you do so many things? And I go back to my values of like why I'm doing this. And so there's been plenty of times that I had to leave certain situations, and I just told someone this morning, like, I have very bad anxiety with change, right? And so sometimes that anxiety would keep me in certain places or spaces, but you do have to evaluate that, like, why am I doing this? Does this align with what my values and my passions are? And the reason why I'm able to do so many things and these ladies are able to excel is because we wake up and love what we do every day, because it does align with our values. You will know when something doesn't align with my values. But you gotta know that. You gotta be okay with that. So if anybody in here is like, I needed to hear that. Now don't go quit your job tomorrow. Okay? But make a plan to quit next week, okay? So I want to open the floor up to you all to ask any questions, if you have any questions for Stephanie or Angel. Ooh, I like choosing her.
I have a question for Angel. Can you talk a little bit about how you went about protecting your IP, knowing that you didn't already know the software, but you had this idea? Can you talk about that process?
Yeah, so I said, like, I've been resourceful, like, in every way. So University of Maryland has a law clinic that has, a team that focuses on entrepreneurship. And so I've gone through, the methodology that we create to measure diversity and inclusion is patent pending. And so we worked with them to put together our patent application. So, now as it relates to that, like, that's ours, and nobody can use that without without our permission. But then in terms of the idea, I mean, it's a balance, right? So you get an NDA, so they helped us to create our own, like, you know, NDA, and it could be an awkward thing to ask people to like sign this, you know, before you like interact and share too much information, but you know, it's business, you know, and you have to do it. So we have that, and so everybody that we interact with, from like developers, you know, to like people who, you know, do UI, or anybody that's going to be seeing like behind the scenes, like what we're working on, you know, sign an NDA. And then sometimes, you know, you gotta also like trust your gut. Like there have been people that I just didn't feel right about, that I didn't trust, or I didn't trust like the motives. And so I just declined, you know, to share. And I've had a couple of situations where like some really big companies have sent like people that work there, like pretending to be like, oh, we want to be a resource, we want to help you, and like, you know, we love to meet, like learn more about your platform, like get a demo, etc. And I was like, you know, this don't, you know, feel right to me. So like, here's the NDA, like sign this, you know, before we had a meeting, and then like they like declined to sign it and didn't meet. So it's like you have to trust, you know, your gut. Put the pieces in place in terms of like, you know, trademarking, you know, from trademark, you know, our name, our slogan, etc. Getting the patent, you know, on our methodology, and then NDA, and then trusting your gut.
So I know a lot of tech companies are preparing for the economic turns that we're facing, and I've been reading a lot, and I just wanted to know, this is for both you ladies, in regards to strategy. Like, when do you know when to pivot? And I know, Angel, you did talk about intuition, like knowing when, like you just get that gut feeling. But I'm just curious where, if you can just share a story where it was a situation that totally you thought was a good fit, and then just something was like, you know what, I'm just going to pivot into something else, and then it'll be bigger than what you expected. I know that's a big question, but in the best way that you can.
Yeah, for us, I think it's the importance of that diversification amongst your customer base and your revenue stream. So like for us, government contracting, like government is the largest spender, right? So it's like government's not gonna stop buying the services and the technology we provide regardless of how the economy is doing, right? So that's one thing. So we see companies who are like, I've been doing this work for commercial clients, I'm interested in kind of selling to government. It's completely different sales cycles, different processes, all of that. So, you know, that's why we exist, to help companies learn how to sell to government. It's not to put all your eggs in one basket. There's definitely downsides to working with government. There's bureaucracy, there's the longer sales cycles, you know, stuff like that. And even like folks were nervous about a potential government shutdown, and you know what happens when you can't do any work on any of the projects that you have and stuff like that unless they're critical to national security or missions like that. So, you know, like there's always pros and cons to each, but I think it's the diversification of your customer base and your revenue streams that will kind of help you kind of weather some of those storms.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, like knowing your market, because I keep wondering, like, with these big tech companies, were they like over hiring, or like what's really happening? Because like people haven't stopped buying tech. People haven't, you know. So it's sort of like understanding, like we're going into the space of diversity and inclusion, and in 2020, after George Floyd's murder, like everybody was talking about diversity and inclusion, so everybody was kind of like, you know, willing to hear the conversation. And then, you know, the concern was like, a year later, 2 years later, are people gonna still care enough about this to spend on it? And I think we're definitely seeing, you know, CEOs, chief diversity officers, like, you know, leaving, you know, jobs, and we're seeing, you know, companies cutting back in this space. But what we had to learn how to do was figure out, like, there's a question of like whose hair is on fire, you know, around this. And so there are some companies and some industries that have to focus on it, you know, more than others. And so focusing, you know, our energy there. So, you know, so every company, you know, can use this, but selling to different industries, gonna look different. So one thing we learned was like with healthcare, because of the changes that have been made to like healthcare policy with the Affordable Care Act, hospitals have to get better at improving patient outcomes. And the patients that they're not doing well with are patients from Black and brown communities. And so now you have CFOs asking, how do we do the social determinants of health thing? And how do we do health equity? And how do we do DEI? So putting our energy there where the financial need is more apparent to them. And there's, we have other industries that we focus on that way in order to kind of like ride out the storm. And then what our goal is to make the social and financial case for for being diverse, equitable, and inclusive so clear that every company wants to do this. Like whether somebody there's just been a big national incident or not. So with those companies that we have, that there is like a burning need to do it, like really be able to make that financial case on top of the social case so that we can then convince other companies to see like this impacts your turnover, it impacts, your, revenue, down the line, et cetera. And then I guess the other thing I would say, so we talked earlier, our name was the Black Brain Trust, and we changed it to the Equity Brain Trust. And that was a hard decision for us because part of the reason why we felt like people were saying we should change it is because they didn't feel comfortable that we had Black in our name. And they were like, are people gonna feel comfortable with that? Are they gonna think that it's like a Black Lives Matter thing, or it's just about race and not gender and other, things that, ultimately you start to focus on when you look at diversity and inclusion, because we're not really addressing like systemic racism and structural inequities that, are really kind of race and gender based. And so we did a values exercise where, our team, sat down and really said, what we want to be about. And what we decided, we had an advisor who talked to us about Dunkin' Donuts. And they were saying, Dunkin' Donuts is now going by Dunkin' because they don't want to just be known for donuts. They sell breakfast and coffee and all these other things. And so, you don't want people to just look at you and say, because of your name, whether it's a misunderstanding or not, they say they don't want to use our platform. But our goal is to really sort of neutralize the politics around diversity, equity, inclusion, and talk about how it makes sense for our society, how it makes sense for companies, and the more successful we can be, the more we're able to impact the world, according to the way that that we want. And so, if changing our name to Equity Brain Trust instead of Black Brain Trust lowers the barrier, makes more people want to come on, then that was a decision that we as a team decided made sense for us, and so we made that pivot.
And I just want to add, so knowing your industry and everything about your industry from now to in the future, right? When we first started the Cube, we were in a 1,200 square foot space, so the space wasn't even probably big as this room. And it was in an old building. My sister walked in when we first got there, and she was like, what the hell are we gonna do with this? And I was like, don't worry, I got a vision, right? And no one really believed in what it is that we were doing because it was so new. Co-working back then, 6 years ago, wasn't as fancy and it wasn't highlighted. And so we were creating as we were going, and we were creating. What we didn't know was that we were literally creating the foundation that everybody was eventually going to want to use, okay? And so just like Stephanie said, diversifying our revenue streams. So when the pandemic happened, we were making money and no one was here. And everyone was just like, how are you sustaining? How are you sustaining? Now, I'm not going to tell my secret sauce, I'm going to pay for that. But, it was really figuring out that I did have this secret sauce and that people really did want this, but it was because I knew exactly what my customers wanted, because I went out and actually talked to them. And so Karen heard me probably earlier. I was teaching my class earlier, and I was talking about customer discovery. So going out, actually talking to your customers. And so they may design your business for now and for the future, right? So it's not that you take everything that they're saying right now and implement it right now. You got to think about the market, think about the industry and what's actually going on, and figuring out how do you make these pieces of this puzzle go together to ultimately achieve your goal. But a lot of times founders don't do this. You start your business with the exit in mind. My exit has always been to lay on the beach and make money, right? I'm not operating this business for the rest of my life. I know that, right? So I had to design my business with that in mind, with my exit strategy in mind. Now we have what our exit strategy is going to be. I can actually work towards that and build within that and build to that with it, knowing the industry like the back of my hand. So when I first started, and no one could tell me anything about the co-working industry. I'm like, I already know that. And I mean, I got data before I even started. It took me a year to do research to make sure that this was actually going to be sustainable and be able to scale. When the pandemic came, I was actually ready to sell the company. I had no debt. I still don't have any debt, really. I have no debt. I didn't have any investors. And so I was at a perfect place where I'm like, ooh, I can sell and lay on the beach and do something else. That's all I was Stephanie laughing because she says I'm always on the plane somewhere. But that's really what I was thinking about. So thinking about those things as well, like really understanding your customers, understanding the industry, but going into business with the exit in mind. You're either going to do two things. You're going to get in business to sell, or you're getting in business to pass down from generation to generation. Now, that second one is kind of hard because it's going to take you for a while to be able to make that go down from generation to generation, right? But I've seen people build something just so that they can actually sell it, right? What did, I always forget, TikTok bought them. Musical.ly, right? They built that company because they knew someone was going to purchase that company immediately. It wasn't even out long enough, right? But TikTok bought it. Now those founders, I'm pretty sure, they on the beach like I want to be, right? So you just got to think about that. But I do want to give you a resource also. I assign this to my students, the ones that's in here, they know how I built this podcast. And so if you've never listened to how I built this podcast, it interviews, it's for Guy Raz on NPR. They interview some of your favorite entrepreneurs, businesses that you probably love, entrepreneurs that you probably love, and they talk about these journeys. They literally take you from the beginning of their journey to where they are now, and everything. It's almost like it's a movie, like you can visualize it. And so I listen to them very often. And I have some favorite ones, but we won't go down and let her ask a question.
Okay, ladies, this question is for the both of you. So you guys did mention that you guys give back to your community as far as those who are breaking into tech or are in the first stages of being in the tech industry. So I wanted you guys to touch a little bit more on mentorship, if that's something that you guys are open to, and what are some specific tech roles that you guys do provide training, and just trying to set the pathway for honestly all of us young women in here who are breaking into tech or trying to find where they fit into tech. Because tech is so big, it's so broad. But with someone like me, I kind of do a little bit of everything. So kind of finding a role that's able to fit my goals, my values, exactly where I see myself as far as my end goal in the career is important. So if you guys could touch on that, or if there's any advice, tech roles that you guys provide, training, honestly, whatever underneath the sun for us that are breaking into that industry would be nice. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So for Fearless, we do a summer internship program each year. So that is a paid internship that folks can participate in, through that, because to your point, there are so many different types of roles that you can have within a tech company or within the tech space. And so we have roles that are creative, so graphic designers, content developers, think of roles like that. And then your traditional kind of techie roles like software engineering and development work, but even like scrum masters and project project management and skills like that, like those are all roles that we have within our company. UX UI design as well, so definitely would encourage y'all to check out like internship programs. And then for me personally, like always happy to mentor, like as part of the internship program, we have a mentorship component to that because it's not just about coming in and learning the technical skills of the job, but it is having that mentorship and that coaching. So even like resume writing and things like that, it's all built into the curriculum around internship. But I personally also do a lot of mentorship, a lot of board service. I've had folks reach out like on LinkedIn, we were just talking about that, where like people just find you like out of the woodworks to like pick your brain, hear your story, ask you questions about your industry, do like the informational interview type of stuff. So, you know, I think that that's also a great way to be able to talk to people about their careers, about their pathways, the organizations that they're at, so you can kind of feel out what type of role do you see yourself in and what type of organization would you be happy in.
Yeah, and same, I mean, we're still early stage startup, but we do internships like each semester, and we are doing two, so one on like the technical side, and we don't have like a specific like, you know, role like front end developer or whatever. It's, you know, because we're so small, there's an opportunity to really kind of get exposed to like a lot of what we do. We have, you know, a product manager who's a Black woman. She, you know, spend time like people just still trying to figure out like what it is that they want to do, and putting you like really on real projects that we're doing. And then on the business side, we bring in an intern who can help like on operations. They spend time with me, like they work with us as we're like in our meetings working on sales. So we do both of those. We're looking, I think we're gonna try to bring on like somebody in communications this spring. And then as it relates to just mentorship, like I just make myself available. I mean, I sit down with people all the time, you know, with coffee, lunch, you know, drinks, whatever, and just have conversations about like, you know, my journey, asking questions, you know, it is, you know, people call it small to more. I think that's one of the blessings about being here is that like we tend to know everybody who's in the scene. So like even if there wasn't an interest in like what we're doing, if there's another company, like we tend to know each other, so we can make, you know, connections and introductions. And people are really down for like just like paying it forward. Like somebody sat down with me, I'm willing to sit down with the next person. And so, you know, I'm that person who's, you know, willing to sit down with anybody.
That was the last question, sorry. You gotta make it quick.
So as for Angel, with your company being very, I guess, kind of diversification sensitive, how much equity would you be willing to give to a non-BIPOC organization when it comes to investors? Just out of curiosity, like.
So this whole investment thing is like, you know, a strategy, right? So at this early stage, pre-sales, you know, really pre-revenue, we have been really trying, we've been successful so far to go without evaluation. And that's because we know that our company is going to be valued a lot less, you know, pre-revenue than once we have revenue under our belt and we can show what we can do. And so that was the beauty and the terms that Harbor Bank set for us, is that they did no cap, and so all the other investors have followed that. What I would say as we, you know, go beyond this round, you know, I have, you know, really great mentors who are white men, and I've learned, you know, a lot from them. I have, you know, mentors, you know, who are women, male, you know, et cetera. And so I think it's really like we were talking earlier about like trust and instinct. If it's a good deal, we've been offered deals that we turned down because we didn't think they were, you know, good for us. You know, that we've had deals from, you know, Black and, you know, white investors that we turned down because they weren't good, you know, deals for us. So I think it really kind of is going to matter like what stage we're in. Are we ready to like really seriously give away equity, and then like do our values align like with that investor? You know, regardless of like, what that background is, because ultimately, because we decided this path, like VC money is the way that we're like building our runway to be able to get to market. We know that we're going to be giving up equity. So, is it somebody who gets what we're trying to do? Is it somebody that's going to ask us to compromise our values? Is it somebody that's going to help open doors? Like one of my white male investor advisors, I would say, like, we've had a lot of conversations about like, how do we get the crusty white dude to like use your platform? And if I can be that crusty white dude who makes other crusty white dudes feel comfortable, then like we'll go down that path. And so the majority of the companies in our society are run by white men, and we need them to want to use our platform and to work with us just as well as anybody else. So we're not turning down good money as long as it's not a bad deal.
Awesome. Let's give the ladies a round of applause.